Hi everyone, welcome to the Vibe of IPX event. Today a lot of youngsters are told that if you work in a startup, you'll grow much faster than when you work in an established corporate. Because in a startup, there's chaos, there's entropy, and within that chaos and entropy, you get to explore yourself. You get to build something from the scratch when things are not already established. But again, different organizations have a very different culture. Different organizations have a very different thought process. So would that organization suit you? So this is why Deep Thought has been organizing these talk shows. We started off with the vibe of Kringle, then we did the vibe of Gropital, then we did the vibe of Creative Organics, and now we have the vibe of IPX. And in this series, what we believe is you can understand a business through the voices of the people who are working for that business. We believe that you can understand a business through the voices of the people who work for that business. So today we have three people from representing IPX. We have Padma, a recruiter of IPX and Kahania. We have Pallav, the founder and CEO of IPX. And we have Ram, who's a former employee of Kahania.com, who's here to share his stories and his memories of working with the Kahania team. And hopefully we can ask them some very interesting questions to understand what is the school of thought that Kahania IPX subscribe to, and what does it mean to be working for Kahania and IPX. We also have Kaustubh, who's a new recruit who's just joined IPX, so probably have limited experiences to share, but I'm sure a lot of questions would be coming in from Kaustubh as well. So yeah, on that note, I'd like to start this conversation by asking three of you one question, and I'll also ask this to Kaustubh slightly differently to Kaustubh, but first three of you. What drives you to work? What is that reason to wake up every day and work for IPX Kahania?
All right. So it's prior to the second wave of COVID, we had a nice office, but then during second wave, we had to move into work from home sort of a situation as with everyone else during the pandemic. But one of the images that we plan to have on a wall is that of the Disney castle. Right. So the whole point of Kahania, Kahania is a platform for stories, right? And the ultimate realization or ultimate goal of a story is to be, is to reach as many people as possible. And some stories go on or some stories exist for days, some stories exist for decades, some stories exist for millennia. So if we think about the Mahabharatas or Ramayanas, these are stories that go on forever and ever and ever. And sorry about the noise in the background. It's my 1-year-old kid who cannot be stopped. So he works at his own whims and fancies. Sorry about that. Any which way. So what wakes us up is the promise of discovering another new story that can go places. So our ultimate aim is to build a Disney castle from a story that's discovered on Kahania. Right. So one small painting called the Mickey Mouse has built an empire that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars, creating employment for millions of people around the world. And it's inspiring millions of people, kids, adults, everyone, right? That's the power of a story. And the thing that wakes me up every morning is, can I discover another story? Can I help someone tell another story that becomes a legend that inspires billions? That's what wakes me up every day.
That's a very nice way of putting it, Pallav. Discovering stories in a Disney castle. I think that's a very new way of thinking for us, at least. Yeah. So Ram or Padma, if you would like to go in with what's your reason to wake up and work at Kahania IPX?
So, am I eligible to answer that question? To wake up at what? because I have added the X, the the X added in front of me as an ex-employee of IPX and Kahania. But I was there when Pallav. So it is hard for me to call Pallav Anna Pallav because I always call him my dear brother. Okay, to call him with his name is like disrespecting for me, but let me try that at least in this meeting. Okay, so when I went into the first meeting, the pre to second wave of the COVID, when I went into the first meeting, and Pallav has explained very little in this meeting about the casual thing, but it was whole sum of 30 minutes that he has given what his vision is like and what are the things that he needs to do with Kahania. So when he explained the things, there is a tinge of social responsibility as well, right? So as a youngster, you don't look out for money always, right? So you want the impact that you can create in others' lives as long as it drives you faster. So if your motivation is only about money, it only takes you till the place where you want to reach something, right? If you want to buy a car, you want to earn till then. But if your motivation is like impacting other people's lives, creating a bigger impact, so that drives you crazy and it doesn't let you sleep. So you're asking about waking up in the morning, right? But it doesn't let you sleep. That's what happened in Kahania for me. It never let me sleep.
Okay, so it's your story of impact. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So Padma, would you like to go ahead with your response? What keeps you going at IPX and Kahania.com?
So Tarun, you are aware of how challenging it is to build a team of good resources to a company, to build a company. So as a member of IPX and Kahania, it's very challenging for me to create talent for the companies like IPX and Kahania as well. Because building a team for tech people is more easier than building a motivating and motivating people who wanted to create the technology on these kind of platforms. So it made me to work for Kahania and IPX as well.
Okay, thank you, Padma. So I have a different question for you, Kaustubh. So you just joined and you're a part of your training period right now. So what's giving you the excitement to go ahead with IPX? I think you had 1 or 2 interactions so far. Yeah, what excites you?
Yeah, so like I have read about IPX a little, but I have read, and the concept is something which I found really unique and relatable, because me being a person who enjoys a lot of entertainment, let's keep the tech stuff beside, but I am personally a person who enjoys different genres of entertainment, and then also in the end I aspire to be a software engineer. So this is something which is binding both of the things, so this is something that excites me to work, and I'm really looking forward to work in such an environment. Yeah.
Sure. So it's a blend of entertainment and software for you.
Yeah, right.
So if I can add another quick point, Tarun. So typically when we are talking about startups or generally anything, they say, what is the problem that you're solving? And generally the problem that are considered as actual problems in this world are only roti, kapda, makan. And then there might come something else like a car or an internet or something like that. But very often what this assumption ignores is, the underlying assumption that is made is that entertainment is a luxury or entertainment is not necessary. But as the world realized during the pandemic, when you were cooped up in your houses for, maybe an year and a half, where you couldn't go outside. If you didn't have entertainment, then practically the entire world would have gone mad. Right. Entertainment is an extremely, even if someone doesn't have their own house, they might get a rental house. But if they don't have entertainment where they can distract themselves, it'll be a major toll on everyone's psyche. Right. At the end of the day, doesn't matter how hard you work, doesn't matter how much you love your work. Ultimately, you need a break. You need to be entertained in another one. So this is one thing that we keep telling everyone, even the VCs, for example, if they ask us, what is the problem you're solving? Set aside the problem. Even within the entertainment space, there are various problems that we are solving. But the point is, entertainment itself has a great importance in the society. Without entertainment, people would go mad. The mental pressures of life cannot be handled without a distraction called entertainment. That's also another important factor that keeps us driving.
Sure. So now I have a question for three of you. What is that one aspect of Kahania.com, or that one incident or event or achievement which you're really, really proud of at Kahania.com? Something which you did which you're really proud of at Kahania.com?
Well, I wouldn't say it's just one thing. It's as a startup, the most fundamental thing that you're doing is you're always punching above your weight. You have to do that. If you don't punch above your weight, you are out of the game on the same day. So every single day you're punching above your weight, and that in itself is a great sense of pride for all of us. Not just us, with any other startup, right? We're constantly punching above our weight. And specifically with Kahania, we are working against very large incumbents in different parts of the world. And, in fact, Kahania was inspired by another platform called Wattpad. Okay. And Wattpad had always been a free platform. They were the de facto leaders globally, and then we were implementing. We were inspired by Wattpad to implement a story ecosystem for India, for Bharat, to empower Indian storytellers. Okay? And then we brought in our own flavor and said, it cannot be a free platform because it's hard to pay salaries and everything. So we implemented some monetization mechanisms. What do you know? 2 years down the line, Wattpad has implemented the exact same monetization model that we had built. So a global platform that has inspired us to start Kahania was now copying our models for their own platform. And even to this day, the monetization model that exists on Wattpad is exactly the one that is, replicated from Kahania. That's one moment of pride. And second, again, we are working against these large incumbents. We'd always believed in the power of story. Can the story go from someone's mind to something large, onto a large canvas like a film or a best-selling book, etc. So in our journey, we've impacted about 4 feature films, multiple audio stories. We've put out 6 books on the market, some of which have become bestsellers. We've turned chartered accountants into full-time filmmakers. We've turned consultants into full-time filmmakers. We've impacted careers in real way. And overall, the ecosystem that we've created, between the films and everything, we've created an economic impact of close to about 35 crore rupees. So we are incredibly proud of that. A small ragtag group of people having made an impact of 35 crore rupees in the entertainment segment. That's a significant achievement for any startup. Again, as I said, we're always punching above our weight, and that is what keeps us going, and that is what keeps us proud.
Thank you, Pallav. Ram or Padma, in case you want to add something.
So I'll go next.
Yeah, Ram, please.
Take that little lenience. And before I start, so whenever my chota boss shouts from behind Pallavanna, I am assuming he's agreeing with whatever you say. I agree with my dad while shouting it. So you could hear a child's voice from behind of Pallav, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Please assume that he is echoing whatever his daddy said. Right? Let me start my story as well in Kahania. So the question was, what is the moment that you feel proud about it, right? So I have many such stories to tell. I will take one which I feel which is important to mention here, right? So Kahania is a place where there are plethora of opportunities. It is a colossal place where you can take anything out of your mind and you put it across the board. And if someone feels it adds value, irrespective of your designation, irrespective of your tenurity, irrespective of your stature, the idea will be considered. One such example is I have brought someone in to the Kahania as a content editor, right? So he has an idea. So he was developing his own story. He was not aware of all these things that Kahania was doing all these things and stuff. One day I have introduced to Pallav and he had a chat with him. His name is Reddy, and there was little amendments needed to that story, and he has encouraged. So Pallav has encouraged Reddy to develop the story further. Now he's continuing as a content editor. Then there is a requirement of story to one of the biggest producers in the industry, right? Then one of our friends to friends, he's not even our mutual friend. He's my friends and friend. And we have discussed the story and we have let him know like there is an opportunity with Kahania. So being said all these things, I'm a software developer. Please know that I'm a software developer and I have nothing to do with the stories. I have nothing to do with the building of all these things, right? So being a software developer, I put the idea across to Pallav saying there is someone who can be a potential storyteller to this particular big person in the industry. And he gratefully accepted it. So that the point that I'm trying to making here is you're not short of any opportunities, right? Particularly the Gen Z is trying to put their head into everything. And that sort of opportunity will be given to you without any doubt in Kahania. And I'm the live example. And being a software developer, I have been part of many things, and I have heard, I have told to focus on the software development many times by Pallav, because I'm being distracted with other interesting things happening across Kahania, right? So that's the kind of platform that you're going to get, where is trying to get into Kahania or IPX. There is no limit to your opportunities. There is no one to stop your enthusiasm.
Okay, so Ram, I have a follow-up question to that. So how has your journey been as a software developer? How have you grown as a software developer at Kahania?
So within a short time of span, right? So the motto behind is like to punch above your weight, right? So I was always pushed to my limits. I was always, pushed to the edge. So that is how startups works, right? So you want to build something with the limited resources, right? You can't expect that leverage of a bigger company is having, right? So within that short leverage, within the short span of money that you have, you want to build something bigger, which is scalable and extra, right? So being a software developer over there, I have learned a ton of things which helped me further in my career. So when I was jumped into the other company from Kahania, and I was assigned to interview a person who is having double my experience, right? When I have asked the similar things to the other person who is having close to 6 to 7 years of experience in the industry, he doesn't even aware of those things. Forget explaining about that thing. He doesn't even aware such thing exists. So that is how forward Pallav thinks in terms of technology. Being a techie, he knows about the technology way ahead, right? So you can see with that the IPX and all.
So Ram, when did you join Kahania?
So it was 2021 October.
Okay, so
20 October. 20
So
October.
you were a beginner then, or so how many years of experience were you carrying while joining?
Right. So this is an interesting question. This will open up Pandora's box, right? So my journey started in 2014. I'm not a starter. I'm not a fresher.
Okay.
Right. So I will always call Pallav my messiah because I don't see anyone giving me the chance. I don't see anyone giving me the breakthrough that I needed in tech industry. Okay. So I was an operations lead in Google. So when I say Google, Google was my client. I worked in Cognizant for close to 5 to 6 years. Okay. So I was an operations lead. I wanted to get into software industry. Then I quit in 2020 Feb. I have taught myself all the coding, the Angular, HTML, CSS, and all. And I was looking out for an opportunity. So I need to confess here, like, so what is the regular thing that we do in current tech industry is like when someone is having 5 to 6 years of another experience, non-tech experience, and if he wants to get into tech industry, the regular thing going on is like putting a fake experience, clearing the interview through proxy, right? So to confess, I did the same, but I couldn't like it. I couldn't clear it. That's the first point. I couldn't clear it because I don't have the real-time experience. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm unable to like it personally. right? So there is other good person, Nag Batula. He's not here. So Nag took me the call, and I clearly explained him what are the things that I have been going through in my life, and how passionate I am about tech industry, and how enthusiastic I'm looking for an opportunity to have that breakthrough. Then Pallav has taken me close to 1 hour of session, and there are very few technical questions he asked about, but all the questions related to what you want to do with your life, what you want to do with your technical experience, what you want to do with the money that you earn. See, so as I mentioned earlier, it is always about creating a bigger impact, not to creating, only the monetary value. Right. So that's how it happened. And as I mentioned, someone is having 6 years of another experience and getting into a software industry, giving him a breakthrough is not an easy job. And Pallav took a chance on me, and that has paid a lot of dividends for me personally.
Okay, so Ram, I have a follow-up question. So when you said from
Sure.
operations you wanted to move into software, so what drove you into, why were you so passionate about software?
That brings in another good person, Chaitanya Chunduri, who is my childhood friend. Right, so we were classmates till 10th class, and he has seen that potential. I have every detail that requires to get into software industry, but I got stuck in the other industry because I couldn't have the financial things to move to a software industry. Even to learn a software thing, you need to pay a certain amount. So in 2014, paying my hostel fee of 2000 was a big headache for me. So I need a job at any cost. So I jumped into the BPO sector. Then I got stuck there. I couldn't come out of it. So in 2020, he pushed me so hard. He ran behind me. The Chaitanya Chunduri ran behind me close to 3 years, and he pushed me hard. Come into the software industry, you will have a better life. Right. So that's when I thought, let's give it one single shot. Leave out everything. Try out yourself. If you're not getting it this time, then you don't belong here. So I quit my job in 2020 Feb, as I mentioned. Then I have started learning all those things, and the rest I have already explained in the previous question.
One more question before I move to Padma is, so you said Pallav asked you very few technical questions in the interview and mostly, behavioral and personality oriented questions. So now that you've already completed, I think, some time with Kahania. So in retrospect, why do you think this kind of interviewing style is useful?
It is useful because he wants to work with the person. Okay. So it's like culture, you can't teach him the culture part. The technical parts, the other person can always learn. If someone is not fitting into the idea of Pallav's, what the vision that he has, and if the other person is not bringing that value and the vision to the Kahania, then we are missing up a lot of things. So that takes a priority, that takes priority always to Pallav, and he is looking at the person at the first priority. And being said that, having technical knowledge is always important because you don't have that much time to learn things here, right? So it is always mix of both these things.
Thank you, Ram. You've been quite patient with my questions. Yeah. So over to you, Padma. What were your observations while seeing the people of Kahania? What common patterns do you see in the people of Kahania? Padma, would you like to take this question? I mean, we'd like to know what is a common pattern you see in the people of Kahania.com.
We are mad.
I think she's frozen up or something. Okay, her video is also not moving.
Okay.
Maybe some connectivity issue.
Okay, Pallav, so then I'll come back to you for a question. So could you elaborate more on that 35 crore impact you were talking of?
Sure. Again, as I said, so when a story gets picked up from our platform to be turned into a feature film, right? And a feature film, making a feature film is a very large enterprise. And this particular film, the name of the film is called Kalki. And the production budget was about 15-16 odd crore rupees for that movie. And that 16 crores obviously, goes into hiring people, hiring equipment, and all of these things. And any film project for that matter, directly employs anywhere between 500 to 1,000 people at a minimum, starting from light boys to editors to directors and producers and everyone, right? So that is that. And and again, as I said, we've helped script development for a couple of films. We've given direct stories to a couple of films and all of that. And obviously films are going to be a much bigger market, and that's the reason why they have that kind of scale. And between just these two films, we are talking about an economic value in terms of production budgets and theatrical budgets and everything. It comes up to about 25-30 odd crores. And then we publish multiple books and audio stories. And when we are talking about audio stories, there's going to be the recording studios, and then there's going to be the artists that are rendering their voice to the stories and all of that. Then, in some cases, it's been that a single story gets dubbed into multiple languages or remade into multiple languages. At that point, we're also talking about translators and all of these. So basically, this is perhaps the only sector where every piece of the economic value directly impacts people. Yeah, that's about. So the parallel I'm drawing is, for example, something like Facebook or Google. If you think about how their economy works, when you do a Google search, the money doesn't directly go to someone. It goes to a company, and then the company has shareholders and all of that, and so on and so forth. But for something like Kahania, if a film is being made, then the money gets divided directly into the people that are working on the project. If you're talking about publishing, then it directly goes to an editor or the publishing house or the printers and so on and so forth. If you're talking about audio stories, it goes to the translators, it goes to the people rendering their voice and all of that. So the speciality of a platform or speciality of an ecosystem of stories is that the core beneficiaries are people themselves, and that is why I'm talking about economic impact more than anything else. It's not just about creating value for the sake of creating value, but it's about creating value for people directly.
Sure, Pallav. So you were talking about 4 films where Kahania played a role, and some audio books which you said you brought out, and 6 novels which got published.
Right.
So could you take us through the story of this CA who became a storyteller and the consultant who became a storyteller?
So the CA that we are talking about is actually the writer of 2 films that got made directly from Kahania. So one of the films is Kalki, as I mentioned earlier. Another film is called Kinnerasani. So Kinnerasani, it's had its own issues post-production. So instead of theatrical, it became a Z5 exclusive release. Right, and this guy was he hails from somewhere in Mehboob Nagar. He's a very young Telugu lad. When he first discovered Kahania, he was about 24, 25 years old. He had great passion for storytelling. But, this doesn't matter where you are. If, go tell your parents that, Mommy, I want to be a storyteller. I want to be a writer, and see the response that you get in your home. Right. So we as a society have this thing where we say, we don't see storytelling as a place where you can build a career, at least at this point. Right. And it's the same story with him. So this guy, he's a brilliant storyteller. He keeps writing stories. But then he doesn't have an avenue through which he can, bring them to an audience or push someone else, or push it for something else. So then he saw a newspaper article. Namaste Telangana was the first. There was a Sunday booklet and a newspaper called Namaste Telangana, which comes in Telangana. So there was an article written about Kahania, and this guy, being an avid Telangana supporter and whatnot, he is a subscriber of Namaste Telangana. He read the story, and we are talking about a book, right? So this comes only on a Sunday. So he read this, and someone calls me up at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday. And on a Sunday, 7:30 is not when I wake up. So I was really pissed off. Who's this bugger calling me repeatedly at 7:30? Then I lift the call, and he says, sir, you've given me a life, I've been writing my stories on papers and I've been depressed, but now you've given me a life with your platform and whatnot. I was like, okay, bhai. So by then we already had hundreds of writers on our platform, and I was like, you're just another writer, boss. It really, let's see what you come up with, and then we'll discuss how much of a life-changing event it is. Then he started writing, and within no time, on Kahania, you can publish a long story as a series of episodes. Right? Within a couple of months, it's produced about 8 or 10 episodes, and in our office we have this concept of a communal lunch, wherein everyone brings their own lunch, but we all sit together and we have lunch together. And after a couple of weeks, every day it was his story that was a topic of conversation at the lunch. It was a thriller story, and everyone was like, what do you think? Who do you think is the murderer, or who do you think is responsible for this? What do you think is going to happen next? That was the topic. That was the only topic across all of our lunches within a couple of weeks of this guy starting writing. And I wasn't a big reader. I wasn't a big Telugu reader then. My focus was always non-fiction, English books and whatnot. After a few weeks, it got so intense that I had to read it. Doesn't matter. So ultimately, I got to reading it by the time he had already finished publishing that entire series. And the moment I started, I just couldn't put my phone down. I was reading it on the Kahania app on my phone. I just couldn't put my phone down. For about 18 hours, apart from sleeping and eating, reading that series was the only thing I did. So that is how engaging the script was for me. And I was really blown away. 25-year-old guy putting out such a brilliant story as a first-time writer. There was obviously a ton of grammatical issues. So the moment we read that, we engaged an editor. We said, please help us clean this up. They cleaned that up, and within no time, we had over 100,000 readers from around the world. People from Switzerland, from Poland, people, Telugu people who have relocated to different parts of the world. They started getting the link from their friends or, other readers in their community and whatnot. We were getting Skype calls saying, can we speak with this writer? We really love what he was doing. We want to just have a conversation with this writer and whatnot. And when I read it, I also saw, there's great cinematic potential in this. And that's when I started going around and discovering who I can approach in the film industry to present the story to. Fortunately, we had this scenario where an erstwhile legendary hero in the Telugu film industry, he was just coming back from a decent hit, and it was almost 1.5 years after that film, and they were desperately looking for stories. They'd already looked at a couple of hundred stories. They didn't like anything. And then I told him, I have this wonderful young writer, just give him one hearing session, take a call based on that. And I personally driven the writer to their place. The narration started at 10:30 in the night, and it went on till 2:45 in the morning. And by 3 o'clock, they had signed up the writer, then and there. And within a year, the film got made, it got onto the theaters, and it had its own story. And that, starting at 10:30, and by the time it was 3 o'clock, the movie was signed, and this guy was in a different world altogether. His entire life had changed. So he was pursuing chartered accountancy because sabko koi to koi career banana padega na. So everyone has to build a career. But then the moment he got an opportunity in the films, he moved on. He moved completely into the film industry. And then Kinnarasani also happened. He wanted to be a director for Kinnarasani, but he didn't have enough experience. So he took up the role of a co-director and writer of Kinnarasani. And now he is also becoming a director by himself. So there's some story that is still in the works, but that's the story of that guy. Then we had another guy who was a consultant, big time consultant, consulted for companies like Google or some of the big names. But he also always wanted to be a writer. He had a manuscript that he had written in 2012. He had sent it to every publisher in the country. Didn't get a response from anyone. Then somewhere in 2017, we launched something called Launchpad. Right? So the idea was to create a bridge between publishers and great story writers. So we had a special campaign running, and then this guy discovered that this campaign was happening, and that manuscript that he had, he simply submitted in that campaign. And the campaign ran for about 3 months. It got extended for another 3 months. So within 6 months, the campaign ended, and his was the book that was chosen. And as luck would have it, the publishing partner that we had at that time was one of the top publishers that he sent out his manuscript to, but never heard back from. Right. So he sent to a publisher by himself. He never heard back from them. But when he came through Kahania, that same publisher gave him a contract. They published his book. It became a bestseller on Amazon. After that, he changed his career over from consulting into a full-time writer. Then he's worked on I'm not sure how many of you are Telugu people here, but there's a wonderful show on Z5 called Gods of Dharmapuri, God. So this guy was also a writer for God, and then he's written and directed another series called Unheard Stories. That's on Hotstar. So after that episode, sorry Tarun, I can't hear you. Your voice is out.
Unheard is in Hindi, right?
Unheard is in Hindi, yes. Right. Gods of Dharmapuri was in Telugu. Unheard is in Hindi. And again, it was at that point that, the moment his book was chosen to be published, he said, okay, I'm done with my consulting career. Now I'm moving into filmmaking. And that's how he's made shift. He is on his own journey now. So these are a couple of stories, but then there's many more people who've become writers, not exactly directors, but they've become developers, script. I mean, generally the way it works in the film industry is one guy comes up with a story, but there's always a bunch of people who develop that story into a script. And even within script, there's a dialogue version, there's different kinds of versions. So dialogue versions also, they have different sets of people because, in a given story, there might be a few people speaking in Telangana, some people speaking in Andhra, some people speaking Rayalaseema, all these linguistic aspects, right? So there's different sets of people working there. So there's been, we've pushed many people into these dialogue writing roles or script development roles and all of that. But largely, these are the two major success stories. There have been other smaller success stories as well. But yeah, we intend to keep creating those opportunities for writers more and more. Our ambition, my mission is to create careers for about 1 million writers in the next decade.
Sure. So Pallav, when Aditya approached the publisher himself versus when Aditya went through Kahania, what changed when you said the same publisher published his book?
Obviously the writer hasn't changed, the publisher hasn't changed, the story hasn't changed. It's all the same. It's just the context that has changed. So generally what happens is if you're a publisher with a decent name, you get hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts. So if you look at the landscape, there's thousands of people who want to be writers, but there's only a very small handful of good publishers. Now, close your eyes and think about it. How many names do you think about when you think about publishers, right? Largely, you'll talk about HarperCollins or Penguins or majorly these. You might come across with Rupa. There's only a very small handful of publishing companies in this world. And there's thousands and thousands of people who want to become writers.
What changed when he went through Kahania?
It's just that, Kahania gave him that pre-approval. Right? So Kahania serves as that filter for you. Again, the reason why publishers don't respond to these thousands of writers is, each manuscript is a few hundred pages. So reading a few hundred pages is at least a week's work for anyone. So if you have to read 1,000 manuscripts every year, you're talking about 1,000 weeks of work. So you're talking about 20 years worth of work in 1 year. And the number of people you need to employ and all of that is going to be a very, very challenging exercise. So platforms like Kahania, what they do is they act as a filter for these production houses, for these platforms, for these publishers, etc.
Okay. So Ram, I have a question for you. So were you around when the Sai Teja story was on in the office?
I don't know the writer's name. Which story Pallavanna he's talking about? Tarun talking about?
No, this was before you, Ram. So this was, we are talking about
Okay, okay.
2018 and 19. So this was before you.
Okay, okay. I wasn't part of it.
So when Ram was around, that was when Kinnarsani happened.
Okay. Okay. Sure. So Pallav, now when you talk of curation of stories, right, for the publishers and for the world, so what is the role of technology here in spreading the stories, and what is the role of Kahania here in spreading the stories?
So at this point, it's largely a function of readers plus editors doing majority of the work. So that is where my ambition with our Kahania's technology is. It's going to be a wild sci-fi sort of a scenario where ultimately when someone publishes a story, my ambition is to create an emotional graph of that story, through technology. That's my ultimate aim with Kahania. But anyway, the way it functions now is it's whenever someone is writing, they don't primarily write it with the intention of making it a film. If that is their primary intention, their approach towards writing is itself very different. When they're coming onto a platform like Kahania, their ambition is usually to find readers as audience, right? And if readers like something, then they share it on their own social media channels, so on and so forth. So that's how it gets some sort of organic growth. Excuse me. So that organic growth, along with our editors, also keep track of all the stories that are coming in. One reason is to keep spam out of the system, and second is to identify good stories before they are before they are recognized for someone else.
What's the role of technology in this process?
At this point, technology only connects the dots. So if a story is, it's just as simple as a trending algorithm that happens on Facebook or Instagram, right? So if a story is being read by more and more people, then it gets automatically boosted by the tech that we have. It supplies it to more readers and so on and so forth. So that's the extent to which our technology exists today. And that is why that is where we intend to do more by bringing in some sort of AI models to determine whether a story is good or not. Exactly whether a story is good or bad. There's no good or bad stories, but to create an emotional graph for every story that comes into the system.
Okay, so how do you distinguish yourself from the other platforms where people are publishing content or publishing stories?
So the technology is going to be similar. There's not going to be very, if you're writing on Medium or Blogger, the technology, the underlying technology is going to be similar between the two. It's just that what is the impact that the ecosystem that you're building that makes the difference, right? So for example, if you write on Blogger, then you don't have any knock-on effects of other people discovering it and so on and so forth. Whereas if you're writing on Medium, then the brand perception that you're creating for yourself is very different. The kind of readers that you get and the kind of knock-on effects that you get from being on a platform like Medium are very different, right? To draw another parallel, if you post something on something like MySpace, which has been defunct for 20 years, it really doesn't make a difference. If you write something on Facebook, it might have some impact, but if you write something on Instagram, it has much more impact. It's just because of the ecosystem that is built around these tech platforms. This content is always going to be the same everywhere. It's just the ecosystem. And that is where Kahania is different. It's not just about providing you a platform where you can write. It's about providing you an ecosystem where your story can grow from strength to strength. Finding more audience, getting editorial support to clean up your story, getting support to, if you want to take the story much bigger, then you can bring it to production houses, so on and so forth. So it's the ecosystem that's of greater value than purely tech itself. And again, as I mentioned, that is where things are today. But as we go down the line, technology will become more and more important, especially because, again, we are also, the immediate journey that Kahania is going to start on now is a transition into Web3. So when we are talking about Web3, we are talking about, licensing rights being recorded on blockchains and, collaborative work and, there's going to be unlimited explosion of potential once we move to Web3. At that point, it becomes the ecosystem again. It's not just about publishing tools; it's about the ecosystem. So whatever we are doing, technological or otherwise, it's always about the ecosystem of taking a story from someone's mind onto the world.
So Pallav, I understand a lot of companies today which are trying to help publishers in finding stories or helping people in publishing their stories. But any other players who are trying to curate stories for film production houses?
Every platform that supports these publishing, there's no other way to make money in this space. As a business, doesn't matter how much of an impact you're creating, you also need to make money at some point, right? So every platform that supports writers will eventually have to work with production houses or so on and so forth. Every platform does some level of curation, but it depends on along with curation, it's also about your trust in the industry, your network in the industry, and all of those factors as well. So that is point number one. And point number two is it's also about how that entire curation process is happening. So typically what happens with some of these platforms that exist today is they say, we are giving you 10,000 rupees. So now we have exclusive rights to your story. Right. And then they say, at whatever price we want to sell to whoever, we will sell it at our prerogative, and whatever money we generate, we'll give you a portion of that. So that's the approach that many of these platforms are taking. And what that does is ultimately, if you think about the entire pipeline, the one that is going to lose out is the writer. Right. And this is being witnessed many places, and that's the reason why writers who have gone to other platforms are also now coming back, gone to other platforms because of the seduction that money has given them. Even those people are now coming back to Kahania and saying, we are being cheated, we don't like working with them, they are ripping us off and all of that. So again, as an individual or even as a company, we always have to think about, at least the way we work is we work on bottom lines. So what are our bottom lines? What are the bottom lines of our writers? What are the bottom lines of the stories that are being published on our platform? And our bottom line, is creating an asset that keeps giving us dividends. And that asset for us is the writers. So some other platforms that are competing with us, they look at stories being an asset. We look at writers being an asset. Stories might fade out, but writers don't fade out. So if one story is gone, the writer comes up with another story. If that's gone, they come up with another story. So we look at the writers being the core assets of this ecosystem, of the story ecosystem, and we work to preserve the interests of the writers. Again, we also have to make money, so we do make our money, but our money is ridden on the writer making the money rather than the story making the money.
I'll open it up to the participants for your questions. I'm sure this would have triggered a lot of questions in you. Please unmute yourself.
Good morning, Pallav. Good morning, Tarun. And I'm Kiran from Hyderabad. So I'm staying in Pragnarana.
Your voice is really, really low. Sorry, I'm unable to hear you.
Am I audible right now?
Yes, much better now. Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, Pallav, and good morning, Tarun and Ram and Kaustubh and all. So I have listened from all your stories and what we have done as and how you people made the people like young people, young writers, and how you support and the people, and how you turn some boys' dreams into come true. So I observed that. So what you are expecting from as we are as an intern, I'm looking for a growth product management. So what you are expecting in this intern? So how it will help us in our career?
So there's a couple of points I'd like to bring in. Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Kiran.
Kiran. Okay, I saw SRK and my natural.
Right. Yeah.
So, all
That's
right.
my-
All right, Kiran. So there's a couple of aspects to anyone that works in our organization, right? So basically, earlier, if you've heard Ram, he was saying, I got involved in so many things that Pallav always used to tell me, focus on development. All right. So the way I think about anyone in an organization, not just for people working in my organization. I've worked in another company earlier, and I'd given I'd set up the same benchmark even for myself when I'm working for someone else. Okay. Everyone has a primary responsibility and a secondary responsibility. Right. So if you're a product manager, then your primary responsibility is that product management itself. As in, if you are expected to deliver a wireframe or a BRD or whatever it may be, then your primary responsibility is that. Right? You can involve with everything else that is happening in the organization. But if you're not delivering on your primary responsibility of being a product manager, then you're not fit to be in the organization. That is my philosophy. Right? Your first responsibility is that. And then the second is, the beautiful statement that was made by Shah Rukh Khan in Chak De. Right? First, you're playing for the country. Second, you're playing for the team. And despite that, if there's still something left, then you play for yourself. Right? So ultimately, the beyond your primary responsibility, the expectation is that you be a problem solver for anything that happens in the organization, be it for the organization itself or for an individual or for the technology or for a writer or for a reader, doesn't matter. If you discover some issue with something, do not complain about it, find a way to fix it. If you can't fix it by yourself, find someone else to fix it or whatever. So it's about the mindset that you bring to the table. Again, as I mentioned, with any startup, the primary, you're always punching above your weight. If a startup is not punching above its weight, then it's dead. Take that for granted, right? So the skills can always be learned, right? Attitude, commitment, discipline, these are things that have to be self-learned. They cannot be taught. Discipline cannot be taught. I'm not running a military school where I hold a stick in my hand and say, "Chalo, 5 round bhago abhi ground pe." I can't do that.
So, Pallav, let me just quickly come in here. So, Kiran, so I think what Pallav is trying to say is there's a primary responsibility as a product manager. But so Pallav, let me just elaborate on the responsibilities of product managers, since many of them are probably exploring it for the first time. So Kiran, I'll just give you a first principles way of looking at product management. So I think fundamentally as a product manager, you're driving the vision of the product, right? You understand what the product represents. I think, for almost an hour, we've been listening to Pallav to understand what this product is going to do. So how can you represent the vision of the product and drive, develop the wireframes and think of how the product has to function and drive the developers to make sure that the technological product which comes out ends up implementing that vision, right? Ensuring the coherence among all the stakeholders and making sure the product executes its vision, right? So how you develop the product, be it on the front end, the wireframes, or be it on the back end, how you document how you want the algorithms to function so the back end developers can contribute accordingly, is what a product manager would be looking at. But again, Kiran, you must have noticed we're not calling it product management, we're calling it growth product management, which is one of the flavors of product management. So when you talk of a technical product manager works closely with the engineers and is involved more in terms of bringing the product out, right? Getting the releases out on time and so on. You also have a functional product manager who's more of a domain expert who brings the domain sensibility. So the functional product manager chooses the problem and chooses the solution. The functional product manager articulates the problem and chooses the solution. In between these two is the technical product manager who's able to come up with a solution along with the engineers. But if you look at a growth product manager, it's different than a functional product manager and a technical product manager. So the growth product manager is responsible, Kiran, primarily for 2 KPIs. One is usage. Is your product being used? Is Kahania.com being used? And the second thing is the revenue. How do we improve the product so that the product can generate more revenue? Where you talk to a film distribution house and understand what do they look for. How can I improve the product so that it can generate more revenue through them? You talk to a publishing house and see how it can generate more revenue. Talk to all the stakeholders of, I'm not fully aware of the stakeholders of Kahania.com, but talk to all the stakeholders and understand how you can make the stakeholders use the platform more and how you can make this, how you can make the platform do more revenue. So as a growth product manager, you're trying to bring those tweaks and those changes into the product itself, and your North Stars, you have two North Stars here. One is usage and the second one is revenue. Whatever you do, right, you may make some changes to the product. You may talk to the marketing team to understand how is it being sold. And through all of that, make changes to the product so the product is used more and the product's revenue goes up. And I believe the future in the 21st century belongs to this growth product managers. Every company will need these people who can operate on these two KPIs of usage and revenue. Very few people in the world can do this. If you can do it, I think it's a gold mine which you're not tapping on. So yeah, so this is a primary responsibility, and the secondary responsibility, which is true in any startup, right? For everyone here. I mean, and a startup gives you this opportunity. A corporate may not, but again, this is how you grow. When you think of everyone around you and you solve some problems, right? How you create more value. Value for the consumer, value for your team, right? Value for your organization. How you can look at problems around you and think of a solution. Like Ram rightly said, right? He saw an opportunity there and said, let me chip in and let me add some value. Didn't say, I'm a software developer, I'll only write some code. He saw something in front of his eyes and he decided to act. So that's a secondary thing where you can add value to other people in your team. But primary thing, I hope I've clarified, right? It's about two things, usage and revenues. How do you tweak your product so that this usage and revenue? And this involves a lot of things. When this is more of the what part of it, but if you go into the how part, you may have to talk to a lot of people, you may have to run a lot of experiments, get a lot of data, see what works, what doesn't work. Community building may be a very important thing because you'll have to talk to the readers, you'll have to talk to the writers, understand what they're liking, what they're upset with, and create an emotion profile of all of that. Look at the heat maps of the product carefully in terms of where the eyeballs are going. So yeah, it's a very challenging role and a lot of things come in there. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Kiran?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Happy to take the next question. And Pallav is quite excited about having you young and ambitious guys here. So go ahead, ask your questions. I'm sure Pallav will be happy to take your question. Who's going next?
Can I go?
Yeah, Kaustubh, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, as an intern, like, how do you expect us to deal with major challenges or failure? Or let's keep aside the intern part. While you were working on Kahania project, you must have faced major challenges or failures. Then how do you work on it and come back over it? Yeah.
So one thing to remember, Kaustubh, is there's always people around you to support you. It doesn't matter if you're the intern or if you're the CEO, doesn't matter if you're the investor even, right? So ultimately, punching above your weight by definition means, there's going to be more effort. It's beyond you. And sometimes you'll feel when you're addressing things that are beyond you. That happens. If it's technical, then it's a different challenge. If it's social, it's a different challenge. If it's a business, it's a different challenge. But if you're talking about technical issues, then please do remember that we have an ecosystem that will keep supporting you. We have senior developers like Ram here. You have a whole team of experts at Deep Thought who are building products and technologies, and then we have our own CTO and our other senior members that are working with us. So you'll always have support, doesn't matter what it is. What we expect you to bring to the table is one, a fighting spirit, and then learning spirit. You learn, you fight it out by yourself. If you are not able to figure it out, there'll be someone to help you out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. It's pretty clear.
So, Kaustubh, just to add on to what Pallav said, no matter who you are, as he rightly put, no matter who you are, there'll always be things which you may not be able to do by yourself. I think that's one nice thing of working with a startup, right? You learn how to collaborate. You learn how to, complement your strengths with the strengths of somebody else, right? Be it an investor or a CTO or a former employee like Ram, who's always happy to chip in and guide people out of gratitude, right? So I mean, again, when you're working on an idea like kahania.com, I'm sure Pallav has a lot of well-wishers who like the idea, saying that, hey, I can't work for you full time, but if you guys need some help, I'm happy to get onto Zoom and clarify their doubts. So those well-wishers become a huge asset, right? Where you can go clarify your doubts, or sometimes just bounce your ideas with them, right? You have an idea, send it to 10 people, ask them to react to it. They'll give you suggestions. And then based on that suggestions, you can build on the product, the mentors, well-wishers, the employees, the investors. You can collaborate with all the stakeholders and get better. Sometimes maybe you're capable, but maybe you're having a little bit of self-doubt. So then again, you might want to just go talk to people, so you get back that spirit and punch even harder after that.
And not just with Kahania, but with anything else, one other important characteristic that you'll have to develop as a developer or an individual, for that matter, is from that social aspect of collaboration that Tarun was talking about. That just doesn't have to be people within your organization. On platforms like Stack Overflow, or many other platforms like that, there's these days there are Discord channels, there are Telegram groups where you can become a part of and you can talk to other people. So funnily, more often than not, some of my recruitments also happen that way. I hit upon random people in different groups, and we strike a conversation in person, and then we like it, and then we start working together. So that's also going to be a great tool in your repertoire as you continue becoming a better, or as you continue becoming a developer. You're muted, Tarun.
We have time for one more question. Who wants to go in?
What is meant by IPX?
Purely from an acronym standpoint, IPX stands for Intellectual Property Exchange. So what it is as an organization, so basically the ambition is that we are building a stock exchange for entertainment. So the idea is that you will be able to invest a small amount of money in music or movies or web series or books or any other form of entertainment, and become an equity owner in that project. So that's the ambition with IPX. And yeah, IPX hasn't launched yet. It's still work in progress. And yeah, that's about it.
So this brings us to the conclusion of the program. And as in every Vibe series, I'd like to ask all of you, how are you feeling?
I feel excited
And why?
because after seeing all of the discussion, now I understand. I have a pretty much big and a pretty clear picture on how things work at Kahania IPX, and I'm really looking forward to pursue that environment, because earlier I haven't got any platform like this, and I would really like to exploit as much as I can and grow.
Glad, Kaustubh, glad you're excited.
And exploitation के साथ साथ collaboration भी रखना और contribution.
Yes, obviously.
Who wants to go in next? How are you feeling right now?
Yes, I want to go ahead. Actually, by listening to this, I have got an idea. Like my friend is a very good writer. Actually, she has written almost 200 more publications, like in a particular website actually. But by coming across this application, I could suggest her like uploading her story in this one and create it into a movie. She is much more interested into horror and thriller movies, so she will be getting a very great chance to convert her story into a movie, and like she can get more number of viewers and she can make money out of this.
The impact Pallav was talking about, right? So you go tell your parents, I want to be a story writer. Probably not so encouraging, but hopefully Kahania can change that for a few people.
Yes.
Okay. Who's going next? How are you feeling right?
Hello everyone. I'm Jyoti Kumar. Currently, I'm a BTech student. and this was a great session. I got to know the difference between the college table and the startup table, how big it is, and also like in the lockdown period, pa- parallelly preparing for my competitive exams, I also started a poetry. ज्यादा टाइम है ना कुछ कर लेंगे बोल के थोड़ा स्टार्ट किया था मैंने and yeah I'm exploring this also and it's good to know that there are platforms who support the writers poets uh, to contribute to the field of entertainment. Many people they only focus on the final product, which may be a film or a song, but surely it takes a lots and lots of hard work, multiple parties getting involved in it, and glad to know what is the back end part of the process and things. Thank you.
Glad you're able to see the back end, Jyoti Kumar. It's a great way of putting it.
I wish you all the best, Jyoti Kumar. You'll reach great heights.
Thank you, sir.
Who's going next? How are you feeling right now?
Yes, I want to share my feeling also because am I audible right now? Hello.
You are, Kiran. We are able to hear
Yes,
you.
yes, yes. Yes, I'm just when you are saying all these things, I'm just correlating. One of my friend, like closest friend in the film industry. So my friend is working at one of the writer named Prasanna Kumar. He wrote for 3 films. So earlier he was worked in Jabardast, and after that he wrote for 3 films. And one is Nenu Local and Hello Guru Prema Kosme. All these movies he wrote. So his assistant is one of my friend, and we used to discuss all these stories. So in my bachelor days, so all these stories we have discussed, and so at that point of time, even when we got any suggestion, and we thought in my mind, we sit together and we discuss some kind of points in from the where the story narration, this or the narration must happen today. So what can we add? Like all these things I had an experience with this to discuss something in some point of time. So I'm correlating, and when you said, and after see this when I applied for intern, so coincidentally this thing came, and that when I saw this Kalki story and all, so I was interrelated all these things. So and at the same time I was thinking that so how I was surprised to see how the Kalki film made right now. So after that, then there are so many people like this who has the talent, and they don't have any platform to share. So right now, it is very good platform, I think, for people like who are upcoming writers, and there are a lot of people doesn't know. I think this should be go into the in like each and every person should know this about this. There is a kahani.com which where we can upload our stories and get money. So it should be reached to each and everyone. So like people who are there are some people who are in the early youngsters also, they're having such kind of thoughts in their mind. That is not only fictional stories, there are some real stories also around us, which was happening in one of my friends' case also. So I know that story. So it was very good. So even I want to share with my some of friends, and we have discussed, and it's like a film. It's like a story of a film. So I don't know at that point of time where to upload it, where to sell, where to whom I need to tell. So I think this is the kind of platform where we can exchange our views, and apart from that, even monetization. So monetization is nowadays each and everyone, if you want to give something, you can take back something. So that is the funda. So I really looking all these aspects. I'm just correlating all these things by listening all your words and all your stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kiran. Anyone else wants to go in? How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I would want to suggest my friend about kahani.com because he wrote a story, but he don't know where to publish it. He wrote a story on scientific time. He created a time paradox in his story. So it is fantastic.
Great, Praveen. So Ram, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling happy to see Pallavan after a gap of time. So we were talking on phone, but we never had a chance of having the video calls. And it feels so nice to talk with Pallav. And once you work with Pallav, right? So you want this person to be successful at any cost, right? So as I mentioned, I went ahead with what my primary responsibility was. So that was the one suggestion that I want to make to the new interns. Never get distracted from your primary responsibility. Okay, so there is a little confusion that I need to make. I still check the SEO report of Kahania, which comes every month to my mail. Pallav, I don't think Pallav is aware of this. So that is how badly you want this person to get succeeded, right? And I will take 2 minutes to explain one such incident. So anyone from Hyderabad, you will be aware of 355 Club in Hyderabad, which is Malapur, right? So me and my friend visited that pub, and there was some artist meeting going on. Okay, so it was on a weekend. I went there to enjoy my time. Okay, so in the midst of that meeting of artists, I have started explaining people about Kahania voluntarily. Okay, I'm a software developer. I went to the pub to enjoy myself. But what I'm doing there, explaining things about Kahania, promoting Kahania voluntarily. Okay, so you will get ingested that you need to make this product successful at any cost because of the vision, because of the impact that the Pallav has in his mind. Right. So please be careful about these things because I was just over consumed all these thoughts. I was so so involved in this, like I want to create an impact. Whenever I'm not creating the impact that Pallav has expectations on me, I was very disappointed. Okay, don't do that mistake. You will have your roles very well be designed and distinguished. Please go through according it. That is only my suggestion from personal perspective.
So now over to you, Pallav. How do you feel right now?
I'm excited actually. So, so my typical interview processes don't involve these kind of sessions where we do a pre-orientation or sort of a thing. So this is quite new, quite exciting, and it gives me so much energy that there's about practically five candidates here, and all 5 of them are either poets or know someone who's written and want to do something. So the point is that there's a storyteller in every one of us or in every one of our networks, and we want to see them successful. And we are building a platform for them. It's a moment of pride for me. It's a moment of gratification that something that we build can really enable so many people, can really empower so many people. And yeah, thanks for this process, Tarun. It's been super nice, exciting, and a good start to a Sunday.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for this wonderful experience on a Sunday morning, as Pallav rightly pointed. So I hope this gives you a good sense of what IPX is about, what Kahania.com is about. And I hope we at Deep Thought sincerely hope that this session would inspire many more youngsters to join Kahania.com, to join IPX and make this vision come true. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you all.